Hi everybody, Russ from My Hammers 11. Hope you're all safe and well. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, hitting the bell icon so you're made aware of any time we put new content on. Loads of great guests coming up, including today's guest, freelance sports journalist, and also he's writing his first book, which we'll talk about as well in a bit because it's quite poignant for being a West Ham fan. It's Danny Lewis. How you doing, Dan? How's it doing, man?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you very much. I'm all right, all right. How
Good.
have you been during this weird world we live in now?
Yeah, I mean, I've not been too bad because, as you said, I've been working on my book, so that's sort of given me something to really focus on during the time.
Mm.
And obviously, where I've recently become freelance, I've also been finding new places to work, which has been kind of exciting as well. So while obviously it's a very worrying time,
Mm.
it's also managed to have a few positives for me as well.
Yeah, it opens up a lot of possibilities, doesn't it, to you now? Because as you said, being freelance, there's a lot of people are going. A lot of companies want freelancers rather than employ people and having to send them on furlough and shit like that at the
Mm,
moment. The whole sort of freelance side of everything. I work in market research and stuff really, and yeah, it's all about consultants and freelancers now because it's
yeah.
just saves them on the bottom line, doesn't it? Really, and they can bring one on a project by project basis or an article by article basis for yourselves.
Yeah, I
But
mean, I was originally furloughed and then made redundant, so it was sort of forced upon me. But I'm sort
yeah,
of looking at it as an opportunity. So
definitely. Definitely, no, you can see that, and obviously it means also, as you said, you've got more time to concentrate on the book as well.
y-
Now, for those not don't realise, Danny's writing his first book, which is fantastic in itself. But what's really useful, particularly for West Ham fans, is it's a book about the Boleyn, and it's a book about saying farewell to the Boleyn. What's the whole idea of the book, Danny?
so basically, obviously I was at the game. I was in the Bobby Moore Upper,
Yeah.
and it's up there with the best nights of my entire life.
Mm.
And I realise that's probably the case for a lot of West Ham fans. And I wanted to do something about it for quite a while, but I didn't quite know what.
Mm.
But then, the idea came to, sort of interview loads of different people to get their experiences and then use all of those to sort of form the narrative of the evening. So there'll be like the build up. I mean, I'm even touching on the Swansea game, which luckily isn't getting too much focus. Um, then everything from the feeling waking up to getting to the ground, obviously watching the game, the ceremony, the aftermath. So literally just everything possible to do with that game. I'm trying to
Mm.
basically get into this book um, because it has such a special place in so many
Mm.
people's hearts. So yeah, and I'm really happy with some of the people that I've managed to interview so far. Obviously, we'll be speaking later on.
Spoiler
Um,
alert! Yeah. There we go.
but but yeah, I mean, I've been tweeting them out. If anyone wants to follow it, it's TBF underscore book. Um, but the people that I've interviewed, a blind fan called Matt Datson.
Yeah, yeah, we
Um,
had his brother, we had James on. James is a big fan of the channel, but
yeah,
follows
I've
the channel. Yeah,
interviewed him as well. Um, today I tweeted out about George Paris. There's been Bobby Zamora, Phil Parks. Um, I had one yesterday that I haven't tweeted out yet, so I won't say. But
okay,
it's one of my favourite interviews I've ever done.
yeah.
Um, so yeah,
Is it with an ex-player?
it's not
Oh,
it it it's not with an ex player. It's with an ex player's relative.
oh, brilliant.
Yeah. So so yeah, it's been really exciting to do it so far. And
Yeah.
like for example, I also went back to Upton Park for the first time since that final game to sort of
Mm.
summarize the feelings of being there. So that was a pretty emotional day. But yeah, it's been good writing it so far.
Oh, fantastic! That sounds brilliant. Yeah, no, it's great, isn't it? It's great when you interview people. I mean, the same for me.
Mm,
I can see a lot of parallels. I sort of started this during lockdown, the first lockdown, because I was missing football and thought yeah, it was quite a nice idea talking to people, and it just became its own thing. As you said, you probably didn't assume for 1 minute that you were going to be talking to Parksy and George Paris,
Yeah.
but it just happened. And that's the same with this. It's like, not for 1 second did I think that I'd have done over almost 200 interviews now, and interviewed some of my favourite players ever, and club legends and things like that. And it's just mental, absolutely mental. But I love it, and same as you, because it's about football and it's about West Ham. It has this extra buzz about it, and no, it's brilliant, man. I'm looking forward to obviously our chat later on. Now, obviously, as as we can tell, you're a West Ham fan.
Yeah.
Obviously, dedicating, writing a whole new book about West Ham. But how did it start for you, Danny? Why are you a West Ham fan? What's your journey?
So when I was pretty young, I was sort of stuck between whether to choose Arsenal and West Ham. And my dad sort of seized his opportunity and just took me to loads of West Ham games.
Yeah,
And every time I went, I fell in love with it more. And there was just a point where I couldn't be anything other than a West Ham fan. And, obviously I'm writing a book about Upton Park, and Upton Park was such a big reason because obviously, when you compared the two clubs, it's not going to be because West Ham were better than Arsenal on the pitch.
no,
There was just something about Upton Park that felt so special to me, and
yeah.
almost like a second home almost immediately. So yeah, that's how it all started for me.
Yeah, and as you said, once you're in, aren't you?
Yeah.
There's no one I interviewed yet who said, "Oh yeah, I went to the first game. It was all right." And I thought I might go to a second game. Everyone's like, "First game, that was it. I'm hooked. I'm never, there was never going to be anything else. That was it." And but that's the great thing about being a West Ham fan. I think. I think I know I'm pretty sure I'm biased to other clubs, but it just seems our fan base is so fanatic and so intrinsically sort of woven into the community spirit. It might be because where the club originated, the East End,
Mm,
and that sort of spirit of the Blitz. No one's up against them, all that type of attitude, and you just get that through. And you get that. Obviously, you're interviewing people now and the fans and stuff.
mm,
They're just so passionate and they just so love their club, and I just don't think you get that sense of community in any other. And we know that because people email me and message me about the channel, and they're Tottenham fans or Arsenal fans or Chelsea fans, and they go, "We don't have anything like this," so that's why we watch it. Although we know
mm.
it's all about West Ham, it's all about football, and it's nice to see, and that's what you'll get as well. You'll get. Obviously, the book will obviously naturally appeal to West Ham fans, but
Yeah.
football fans in general, because it's a piece of history, wasn't it? Really,
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
in terms of who's played there and stuff like that. Obviously, the '60s and Moro and stuff like that. But even Messi, Messi's played at the Boleyn, so you know what I mean. So yeah,
Yeah.
I was there. I was there in that he graced a pitch at Upton Park, did Messi.
Yeah.
And Zabaleta with hair, I remember at the time as well. But that's all the fun, and it's just I love talking to fans about West Ham and on the channel as well, because
Mm,
you just you blink and it's an hour's gone or 45 minutes has gone, because everyone has the thing that joins you doesn't matter where you live, where you've come from. Uh, Everyone support is that badge, isn't it? So obviously,
yeah.
and just for you, I put on my last season at Upton Park shirt. It
I
wasn't.
noticed that.
I didn't just I don't just throw these things together, Danny. I plan them out. But no, it's great, man. Do you remember your first game? Your actual first game?
Yeah, it was we lost 1-0 against Everton.
Perfect.
Um, it was Alexanderson who scored the goal for them. I'm probably the only West Ham fan around that still remembers him. But yeah, I mean that's what I mean. Like the actual game itself wasn't necessarily that great because
No.
obviously we lost, but everything around it was just so captivating. And obviously on the flip side, I took my nephew to his first game. Luckily, in the final season at Upton Park, and we won 2-1 against Newcastle.
Yeah.
And I saw the exact same look in his eyes as I had when I went to my first game and saw that pitch for the first time. So that was a pretty massive moment for me as a West Ham fan, obviously passing on the baton in a way.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. It is about that sort of no one. Yeah, as you said, the game is irrelevant, to be honest, in terms of the score. 9 times out of 10, the people I interviewed, do you remember your first game? Yeah, we lost. That's usually what they say,
Yeah,
which, to be honest, is proportionally and on a probability scale, yeah, it happens more often than not. But it's all about, as you said, that walk up and that smell and. Whether it's Upton Park or their first game as London Stadium, that walk up, and then, as you said, walking up the stairs and then you just see a sea of green, which doesn't seem to be greener than any
yeah,
grass you've ever seen before in your life. It makes
mm,
no sense, but yeah, it's a special thing, isn't it? A special thing, and you said now having the ability to pass it to your nephew as well, and your kids further down the line,
yeah,
and so on and so forth. I know it's a bit early to think about that, but it's a family tradition. And that's what I think people love about it. Is still very much a family club, and you see that with people we've had on. We've had fathers and sons on,
yeah,
and stuff like that, and it's lovely to see because it just shows that there's this, sort of momentum. There'll always be fans. There'll always be, regardless of what division people that West Ham's in, you'll still get sellouts all the games because it's just being part of being part of a family, isn't it? And that's what I
yeah,
think people miss when, like, obviously, since restart. Is that sort of sense of togetherness. I mean, you can replicate it on Zoom and the watch alongs that all the Hammers
mm,
chat and Irons United and people do. Um, but it's that sort of, as you said, it's going with your family or going with your mates, going to the pub beforehand, talking rubbish before, talking rubbish afterwards. Not
yeah,
even the game, is it really? I mean, the thing is, you've got a fantastic view of the game now because it's on telly and better than probably what you had at London Stadium.
yeah.
Are you a crowd noise on or off type person?
I turn it off.
Do you?
It annoys me a little bit because it never like it isn't natural.
Yeah.
Like there's no point in having the noise if it's sort of forced in my book. Plus, it can be quite interesting to hear what the players are saying.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I turn it off every time.
Yeah. You're right, and it's. I mean, some people just like listen. Some. I mean, I have to put it on because literally when I'm there at the moment, it's just so quiet. It's just so quiet. It's weird. Obviously, if you're watching it, it's not as weird because you sort of understand. But being there and just it's so cavernous, and you're just there like fucking. It's like as you could hear
Yeah,
the journos typing on their laptops. That's how quiet it is, and they all got these flashy Mac ones, and so you shouldn't really hear it, but you do. And so I have to put some noise on, or I have to put a watch along on, just so I've got some noise, just going through it. Although I did watch the game the other day, and I watched it entirely with the crowd noise off, the away game, and yeah, that was quite fun. Just because I like hearing people swear, just
yeah,
just to hear who shouts the most, and you can make out quite clearly, oh, that's Mark Noble, oh, that's Deck, and stuff like that. But it's all fun and games.
yeah.
Um,
I actually managed to get a press pass for Colchester v West Ham under 21s on Tuesday,
Brilliant.
and that was a very strange experience because obviously that was an empty stadium, and they still had some of the cutouts of fans in a
Oh
section
yeah,
of the
yeah, yeah.
ground. So that was quite amusing, but it's very strange sitting in a football stadium and not having all that anticipation before the game. And I mean, granted, it was an EFL trophy game, so it wouldn't have been,
It's still the same though. It's still the same with the Premier League games. It's
yeah,
like, I we still do all the videos and all the the London's calling and all that stuff just to get some
mm,
atmosphere. Because although there's no fans apart from me and a few people working there, it's still you've got to try and get something up for the players. You know what I mean? Yeah, just so they
yeah,
can. I don't know, but it's just it's weird. It is weird, and it doesn't look like any time soon it's going to change. So.
mm,
But I think I think people have adjusted to it quite well. Do you know what I mean? I just think it needs to be done, and it's a shame that it's had to be put back. I mean, it was meant to be the Man City game, weren't it? They were thinking originally at the beginning of the season, and that's
Mm.
now been pushed back. So we'll see what happens. But as long as the team start doing some stuff in the league now. Obviously, we're not in the cup now, so
Yeah.
there we go. Less said about that, the better. But yes, it is what it is. But yeah, we got some tough games. But the Wolves game was encouraging for the
Mm.
league. We'll call it the league side. Was encouraging for the league side, and so yeah. Tries to got Leicester now, and they obviously just turned over City. So okay. Anyway,
Yeah.
moving on. Moving on. Let's talk about the 11. That's what we do. We do nostalgia. We don't do any current affairs. So the idea of the Hammers 11 is everyone we comes on the channel picks their 11. So the only
Mhm.
rule is you have to be alive to have seen them play. But in terms of who you pick, it could be the best, your favourite, which might not be the best, for example. It could be the worst. It could be, I don't know, players beginning with B. It doesn't really matter. It's all about sort of people that mean something to you, whether it's positive or negative, and that type of thing. It means we've had like over 200 odd different players have come up in terms of if we didn't put that parameter on, it'd be the same bloody 11, wouldn't it? Really,
Yeah.
it would be Bobby Moore and Phil Parks and stuff. But you mean we weren't around to see him play, so
Yeah.
why should we pick him? Do you know what I mean? But so that's what we do. So
Mhm.
you can play any formation you want either, Dan. It doesn't really matter, mate. So we'll start off in goal because that's the easiest one.
Yeah. Just to start, I've gone for sort of a mixture between favourite and best.
Yeah,
Um, so in goal, I've gone for Robert Green.
yeah.
Um, obviously his reputation was tarnished by what happened against USA.
Exactly, isn't it?
Um,
Crazy. One goal,
under,
isn't it?
but my favourite Robert Green sort of stage of him being at West Ham was actually after that, because we got to see how every single fan base would come and just absolutely berate him.
Mm,
And then, he'd put in these blinding performances. And if we won, he'd give them a bit of stick back. And I don't think there are too many people that could have potentially dealt with that on,
yeah, not at all.
pretty much a weekly basis.
Yeah,
That was a lot for him to handle. And I thought he did it really well. And so that just really took him up in my estimations.
yeah, no good shit. You're right. You're right. It takes a very strong-minded person to have the bottle to do that, isn't it? To
Mm,
take all that abuse and yeah. I mean, he's a different type of person, Robert Green, by all accounts. When I've interviewed
mm,
his teammates, they mention he's different than them. But I think you need to be different to be a goalkeeper.
yeah,
Not the character, not the sort of the crazy sort of Adrian type goalkeeper, but very very calm, very collected. We had Jimmy Walker, and he said that Greeno was the best trainer he'd ever had. wasn't the best goalkeeper,
mm,
but he was the best trainer he's worked with, and you can understand that. So obviously the famous game against Arsenal when he had like a dozen one-on-ones and
yeah,
everyone he was training on the Friday doing 2.5 hours extra. On the Friday doing 101s, 101s, one-on-ones with Ludo, and it paid
yeah,
off. You know what I mean? But right, we'll put Greeno in. What are we playing? Four at the back, Dan. Three at the back. What are we
yeah.
doing?
I've gone for like a 4-3-1-2.
Nice.
Yeah, I haven't got any conventional wingers in this formation, which
Sure.
sort of does a disservice to the likes of Matty Everington. But
Yeah.
got to do what you got to do.
You got to do what you got to do. Right. Okay. Let's go left back then. Who we got left back?
I've gone Aaron Cresswell.
Yeah.
I know people, he sort of maybe tailed off a little bit in the last season or two, but you know, there was a stage where obviously he won Hammer of the Year.
Yeah.
He was among our best players for quite some time. His delivery on the ball, his free kicks, he was really solid defensively. And, he's still done well. I mean, against Wolves, I thought he performed brilliantly. I
Yeah.
mean, pretty much everyone did, but he performed brilliantly. So yeah, he's definitely my left back.
Yeah. And it's one of those players, and we've had quite a few once they get injured, they never come back the same, do they?
Mm,
And that was him. He said firing all cylinders, hammer of the year. When he was it's his 7th year now, I think, of at the club, and when he came, he was exciting. Then he got injured and never was the same player, unfortunately. And that happens to quite a lot of us, it seems, particularly in the
mm.
modern day. Um, but yeah, all right, we'll put Cressy in. Okay, let's go right back. Let's go the other side then, Danny.
Just one more point on
Go on then.
Cresswell. The fact that he's had such longevity when he was a signing from Ipswich, I also think is very impressive because he
Mm.
obviously had to take a step up and he did it pretty much immediately.
Yeah, yeah,
But,
no, I totally agree. Yeah,
but yeah, anyway, on to right back. Thomas Repka.
super Thomas Repka.
Um, Anyone who worked with me at my old place, Snack Media, knows how much I love Thomas Repka. He's actually the person that made me fall in love with defending. Like when I was younger, I used to be a striker, but managers always just dropped me back slowly until I was a centre back. But yeah, I absolutely loved Thomas Repka. I mean, he was just such like a warrior on the
Mm.
pitch, and you know, I also think he was underrated as a footballer. I mean, people pick on the fact that he was a right back who never scored, but he did a lot more than that, obviously. Um,
Mm.
I thought he was a very good player, obviously very tough. And you could tell that he absolutely loved the club
Mm.
based on that final game and
Yeah, yeah,
when he was being clapped off and he was pretty much in tears. And, seeing a player like that showing so much emotion was pretty touching, I thought.
yeah.
And, I've watched it back a few times since and yeah, I just can't help but love Thomas Repka.
Yeah, and I think I honestly think that's probably the first time that fans would have chanted his name. Do you know what I mean? And thinking about where
Mm,
he's gone before. I mean, I don't Fiorentina and stuff like that. I just wouldn't think maybe Prague, but I wouldn't think that anyone would do that. So it must have been like an unusual thing for him to have that sort of
mm,
ovation. I think that's almost what sort of did it because it was like a swell of super, 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 and it just got
yeah.
louder and louder and louder, and it must have been just incredible. And I know what you mean. I mean, he wasn't pulling up much trees when he was at centre back, and then they moved him to right back, and he just seemed to be the right position for him.
Mm,
It just seemed to work a lot better for him. But yeah, we love a nutter, don't we? To be honest, Danny,
yeah.
we do. I mean, even after he's left, even more so, he's become more of a West Ham icon since he's left. So no, I love it, man. Right, okay. Thomas Repka is in. Who is? Let's go centre back. So who's your first centre back, man?
So my first centre back is Winston Reid.
Yeah,
He, final goal at Upton Park, scoring that goal against Millwall. Um, you know, he's going to be pretty popular based off those
yeah.
two goals alone, let alone everything else he did for the club. He was a solid defender. There were quite a few times, if I'm correct, where, the likes of Arsenal and a few different
They
clubs
were,
were
yeah,
looking
yeah,
at him,
yeah.
but he decided, whether he decided to stay or whether the club just turned down the offers. Obviously, I don't know. But he was a very good player, and while he sort of had his injury problems towards the end, no one can forget just what he's done for this club. I mean, he was there for such a long time. Again,
Mm.
an absolute bargain from Midland. I think it was like 500 grand or something stupid like that, um, for a player who's done so well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he's definitely in there for me.
No, you're right. And I mean, again, did the same thing with Cresswell. So I was going to mention Winston Reid, but I thought, do you know what? You're probably going to have him in your team.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was the same thing, isn't it? Injury, just he may well not have been a West Ham player if as like now if he wasn't injured. Do you know what I mean? Just because,
Mm,
as you said, the likes of Liverpool, Arsenal, they were all sniffing around for him. I mean, the best thing for him was us getting relegated the season he came, because he found his feet in the Championship,
yeah,
and
definitely.
he was a great. I mean, 10 years. How many years? We signed him 2010, wasn't it? After the World Cup, so 2010, and it's great. I mean, he's just starting to play again now at MLS, so
Mm,
good luck to him. You know what I mean? I think he's one of those players where um, it's weird because there's certain players who just, I mean, I think people respect Winston Reid as a player and stuff like that. I just don't think he had the same connection with the fans like a James Collins. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
He's like, and I just think it's maybe because, as you said, because he came from Denmark, they're quite reserved. The Scandinavians, New Zealanders, they're quite
Yeah.
reserved. Whereas like Collins was like, like Welsh, sort of, so he could skinhead and stuff like that. But no, his contribution to particularly modern West Ham is well, it's going to always be in history, won't it? Because of the last goal. Right, okay, we'll put Winnie
But
in.
one thing on that point, sorry.
You go.
So I actually managed to get into a press conference for Sporting Kansas City and speak to Winston Reid for the book.
Cool.
And one thing that was very clear is he definitely had an appreciation for the fans.
Yes.
Because when I asked him obviously about scoring that goal, he sort of said, to give West Ham fans such a special moment after they've stuck with him and the team through good. He actually said there's probably been more bad times than good times for West Ham, which I found quite amusing. But yeah, he's really appreciated that, and as much as that moment was special for him, he sort of was really keen to point out that he was really glad to give that to the fans as well.
Yeah, and I mean, for someone like him, it's just, yeah, it must just be just such a, he'll never, when he comes back, from Kansas, if he does, he'll never have to buy a drink in East London or East Willing just because of that. Not only just the Millwall goal, but because of that goal and everything he brought to the club. All right, Winnie's in. Okay, who's next? Who's your next centre back?
You actually mentioned him. I've gone James Collins. I was close to picking Ogbonna because I do really like him. I think he's brilliant. But there's just something about James Collins. I just couldn't leave him out. I mean, I love a player that's willing to, put their body on the line and just sort of gives everything for the team and all that. And, James Collins is the epitome of that. And, a bit like Repka, that final game, where all the West Ham fans were singing, sign him up, Ginger Pele. And, you could tell how emotional it was. Like, that's probably, for me, one of the most emotional moments we've had at London Stadium is seeing him leave the club. And, he obviously had two spells. If I'm right, the second spell is when he sort of really came into his own and just sort of showed us just how quality he is. Yeah.
And I mean, he just West Ham fans just got him, and he got West Ham fans, wasn't it? It's just like that never say die attitude. And I've said it before. I don't necessarily remember much of his first stint as his second stint. His second stint to me, he came back as a West Ham defender. Rugged, skinhead, beard, like more of an old school defender, and I mean, particularly that last season and the season before, he put in some. He basically won games on his back, didn't he? He was that good, and it's a shame that obviously he wasn't there for the 10th year, but football's different now. You know what I mean? It's you talk to a lot of the ex-players who have been around in the 80s, Tony Gales and Cotties and McAvennies and people like that, and it's different. It's like it's not about staying at a club for 10 years now. It's about you have 3-4 year contracts and then you move on, or we might offer you an extension for 2. You don't. The Mark Nobles of this world are exceptions to the rule, unfortunately, and I think we still have this sort of utopian view of football that the players want to stay here forever and they love the fans, and they genuinely, everyone I interview, every ex-player, same as you, they genuinely love the play. That you've got the same experience. They love the fans. They all love the West Ham fans, but it's we don't get that anymore. We're testimonial years and stuff, unfortunately. Right, okay. We're going 3 in midfield, aren't we? I think we said.
Yeah.
Go on, who's your first one?
Seeing as you've just mentioned him, Mark
sorry,
Noble.
I'm just spoiling it. As I say it, I'm thinking he's going to put Mark Noble in as well. Poor bugger. Yeah, go on. You talk about Nobes.
Well, I mean, obviously, right. I've been focusing on that last game at Upton Park for the last few months or so, literally every single person I asked to pick out, their man of the match or who stood out for them, has pretty much said Mark Noble. Maybe one or two others didn't, because he was just absolutely sensational for that whole season. And just the longevity. I mean, as you say, like, how many people nowadays stick around at a club as long as Mark Noble has managed to stay at West Ham. And the amount of times he's been completely written off, even by his own fan base. And he's managed to convince manager after manager that he's worth having in the team. So I think that says a lot about him as a player and also as a character, because he absolutely adores West Ham fans because he is one. So to even have been doubted by them at points and been like, no, actually I can still lead this club, is very admirable in my book. And
totally.
he's had an impact right from the start. I mean, I still remember that volley against Spurs, the game where I think Tevez scored as well.
Yeah.
But like, to be going from there and now still be involved, pretty much, it's probably almost my entire time as a West Ham fan.
It would be, almost.
Maybe minus like 4 years or something like that. He's been there, so it's going to be very weird when he does eventually retire and I watch a West Ham side that doesn't include Mark Noble.
Yeah. Well, it's the same in the sort of the more experienced era, as we'll say. The old codgers. No, because obviously you had Bonzo and Alvin Martin. For a lot of people, that they all knew, they were there for 20 years. So double test. So they were the only people. They were always there for a lot of people who had supported the club at that time. And Mark Noble's the same. And it's I was obviously. I mentioned this a few times when Mark Noble name comes up in discussion, which obviously very often. Chelsea last year, obviously with the 3-2, Mark wasn't in the squad, and he was sat right by the disabled bays, because they're already socially distanced, the chairs, aren't they? Because you had the wheelchair access. So that's where they put the auxiliary squad, and Mark was there, and I watched him, not the whole game, but for quite a lot of the game. And he's a West Ham fan, but to see it, because literally he was watching that game like a fan. Every ball was being kicked, everything was being, every wrong decision, and he was up it. And when Yarmolenko scored, he literally almost punched a hole in the wall, and then as soon as final whistle happened, jumped over the barrier. Could have probably done his ankle in, just to get into the tunnel as quickly as possible. And you was thinking, I love the man already, but watching him watch a game, he's like, do you know what? It's amazing. It's such and I hope that, my head and my heart thing that, Mr. Rice sees the impact that Mark Noble makes amongst the fans. He's not silly. He knows that Mark Noble. He said Mark. It's almost like he's Doctor Who, Mark Noble, because he sort of he regenerates himself every so often, doesn't he? So defensive midfield player. Now I'm going to go attacking. No, I'm number 10 now, and it's like, no, I'm back to defensive midfield player. It's just like he has these, and it's just amazing. And I just think it's such a special thing to have a fan who's your captain and is a one-man club and has played over 500 games. There's not many players in the modern game who do that, and I think he needs to be revered once he retires. And so, and I hope, obviously, there's this sort of wave to have ex players in every age group of the setup up to London Stadium at the moment, and so obviously Zavon and Colton and people like Potsy and Kevin Keane, and I would hope Mark would slot into one of those groups, and Paul Konchesky. Sorry, Conch, because otherwise he'll text me. Didn't mention me. But yeah, no, and hopefully Nobes will be another one added to that, because he just needs to be. I don't think he'd ever leave the club. Do you know what I mean? I think they'd literally have to drag him out, kicking and screaming. I almost see, like, like those dog leads, those retractable dog leads. You can go like 5 meters, but you can't go anymore. And you come in, and I can just see that with Mark Noble. But, no, he's a good man. Right. Okay, Nobes is in. Who's next?
I've actually gone for Declan
Oh,
Rice.
for God's sake. Do you know what? Literally, I'm sitting here going, I'm not going to mention any players now. Okay, go on. Declan Rice. Yeah, go on.
Obviously he is just a brilliant talent, and I think also what comes across is how likable he is as a person.
Yeah.
I mean, there's Twitter accounts with like videos and all that dedicated to him, and he's just had such an impact, and to already have over 100 appearances for West Ham
Crazy,
at
isn't it?
his
Crazy,
age
crazy.
is it just shows how good he is. And I doubt even he thought that when he was coming on with a couple of minutes left against Burnley, and if I'm correct, that was pretty much all the game time any academy product was getting that season,
Yeah.
that he'd go on to do what he has done now.
Nah.
And obviously, it is kind of an exciting time for the academy, even if Dejan Garner got sold and, Anthony Scully left and stuff like that. This is an exciting time for the academy,
I
in my
totally
opinion.
agree. Yeah.
And he's obviously, without doubt, the figurehead of that. And, he's probably a massive motivator for the players coming through, because they're like, look what Deck did. Let's try and emulate that. Or even if we can't be as good as he was, let's at least join him in the first team playing on a regular basis. So, look, there is likely going to be a time where he leaves because he is just so good. I just hope and pray that it isn't this summer. Otherwise, there will be some sort of revolution or something.
I've always thought, I don't think it's going to be this summer. I always thought, and hopefully I've got a few more days to not prove myself silly, but I've always thought it's not this summer. I just think, there's the only team. Well, I don't think. Okay, let's rephrase that. I don't think he'll go to Chelsea by the end. This summer, because I think they spent all their beans now, and I think, they want him as a centre back. Hopefully, he proved at the Everton game he's probably better as a defensive midfield player. But obviously they got Thiago Silva, so for them it's like, well, there's Silva and one other really. The only team that worries me is Man City because of because they need a new Fernandinho. They do. Rodri doesn't do it for them. For me, I don't think he's just the player, and so Deck would walk into that team. He's that good.
Yeah.
That's the one that worries me. Nothing else. I think everyone else is probably sorted a little bit. You know what I mean? But I mean, yeah, it's a case of when rather than if. But that's a case of modern football as it is at the moment. But I totally agree with what you mean about the academy. It's an incredibly exciting time. The boy Alessi, what was it, Ashby? I think Ashby's a fantastic player. Oh, I think he's a brilliant player. And there's some really good. Conor Coventry obviously scored an absolute cracker the other day, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I just think there's some really good young players around. Obviously, I said Dan Kemp on loan, and I think a few more might go on loan now because we've been knocked out of the cup. But that's the way it works. That's why Ross Barkley left to go to Villa, because they got knocked out of the cup. And so it always happens. But I think Deck is an incredible person and a lovely bloke. And if a bid came in and we rejected it, he's not going to do a Payet. Sorry, I just thought you're going to put Payet in your team. He's not going to do an Arnautovic. Can we say that?
Yeah, he's not in my team.
He's not going to do an Arnie and throw his toys out the pram, right? Do you know what I mean? But I think he's a great bloke, and hopefully he'll be captain for a long while for us, because I just think he's. I remember seeing him under 23s, because obviously we do a few under 23 games at London Stadium. And I remember it's a couple of years ago he was doing, and he was just head and shoulders above everyone, just because of the way he conducted himself. And having talked to like loads of ex-players like Sinks, Trevor Sinclair, and Peter and Hartson, and people like that, it's so unusual to have someone so young have this sort of leadership John Terry quality about him. Do you know what I mean? He's just so you can see why Frank Lampard sees him as the next John Terry, because of the way he conducts himself in terms of leadership. And I just love him. It's horrible, isn't it?
He's a superb player. I think it's just a case of making sure that we enjoy him as much as
Totally
possible
agree.
while he's here, rather than, once his summer's out of the way, don't think, oh yeah, he might be going next season. Just enjoy him while he's here
We just
because
hold our
he's
breath till
such a good
January.
player.
Yeah. But I mean, it's with it, and it just shows you how good Declan Rice is. So when the Newcastle game, beginning of the season, everyone's like, "Oh, that's it. His head's turned." Da, da, da. He had one bad game, and he
Yeah.
probably played about a 6 or 7 out of 10. And it's
Mm.
like, well, if that's him on a bad day, he was still probably one of the best players on the pitch for us.
Yeah.
But it just shows you how consistently well he performs as a player. Like yesterday, didn't play very well, wasn't in position. I think the last time he hadn't played well, obviously Newcastle. Probably the last time before that was Wolves at the restart, where he played him centre back,
Mm.
and we lack that position. That defensive midfield role is such an unusual position. You can go and buy a decent centre back now, no worries. You could go and buy, Man City bought Ake or Koulibaly from Napoli, or there's some good centre backs.
Yeah.
Next position is really hard to buy for. There's not many good ones out there.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Declan Rice appreciation episode. Who's next?
So I've gone for Scott Parker.
Oh, that is a taste. That is a tough midfield. I tell you, you wouldn't get much
Um,
change out of that midfield, would you?
yeah, I mean, I sort of spoke about how when I was younger I moved back to centre back, but I ended up going into like a defensive midfield role. So I've
Yeah,
got a lot of appreciation for these sort of players. And, Scott Parker, you know, even the last season when we got relegated and were absolutely rubbish, he was just every week turning up and just he was so good. And it wasn't just his own performances, he was motivating his teammates. I mean, even though it obviously didn't pay off
mm,
because so many of them were just so incredibly average. um he was just incredible.
he
And
was.
even though obviously every West Ham fan didn't want him to go to Spurs, like, while it did take a bit of time to get over him leaving purely because it was Spurs, he definitely did deserve the chance to go back into the Premier League and be pushing for Europe and try to get into that England team. It was just obviously a shame it was for Spurs. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't think that should detract. I remember the first time he actually came back to Upton Park to play, there was like a very confused atmosphere around him because everyone wanted to appreciate what he did.
Yeah,
But there were some people who just couldn't look past the fact that he'd gone back to Spurs. But I think as time went on, I think everyone sort of, realised what he did give to the club, just how good he was as a player for
mm.
us, and that he was also, well within his rights to go and
Yeah. I
find a
mean,
new
it's
club.
it's weird, isn't it? It's weird because like we've just spoke about Declan Rice, and I don't think any West Ham fan would begrudge him wanting to leave to go to Chelsea,
Mm,
or Man City. There isn't much difference to when Scott Parker left.
mm,
Do you know what I mean? It's funny, and it's like, and I know into Tottenham, and yeah, but you think about, and I've said it before, you think about the people that we revere as legends. The Martin Peters, he left to go to Tottenham.
mm,
Bobby Moore was gonna wanted to leave. Potentially was gonna go to Tottenham or Arsenal. So, but he's got a stand named after him. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
And it just seems that it's funny how we paint the brush, or the same brush stroke, but but it's all right because he won the world. No, it's not. I mean, for us, Scott Parker is like he carried the team for 3 years on his back. I'd see him crawl off the pitch almost, like literally
Mm,
at the coming out of the changing room, going home. He would be limping, and he knows he's literally left everything on the pitch, and that's all we ask as a West Ham fan.
mm,
Yeah, if he had gone to Chelsea, back to Chelsea instead of Tottenham. But the thing was, his dad was a Tottenham fan, wasn't he? His dad, like, on his deathbed, wanted him to play for Tottenham or something like that. And so,
yeah.
it's again, it's this utopian view of, what a
Mm,
footballer. Actually, it's a career for them, and it was always going to go. It's a shame he just went to, 3 Point Lane, but You
I
know,
think it's one of those where it just sort of takes a little bit of time to get
yeah,
over. And I also think, seeing him as Fulham manager now has sort of made some people realise just what a good man he is as well. Like when he spoke after the playoff
yeah,
final, and you realise just how much he put into it, and
yeah,
he became quite relatable because he's talking about like having a Chinese on the weekend and stuff
yeah,
like that. So just just everything about him, he's just class.
yeah. He's a class act. And that three of Noble, Rice, would it Parker, Noble, Rice? It's almost like a changing of the guard, the way I see it.
Mm-hmm.
So no, there's no doubt that Mark Noble learned a lot about how to be a captain, how to be a player, how to be a man from Scott Parker. No doubt at all. And now Declan there's no doubt that he's learning how to be a captain and a man from Mark Noble. It's sort of this, and they've all passed down the Parker pirouette, as I call it. It's like
Yeah,
they all do the Parker pirouette, and no, it's a tasty three, man. Right, okay, so we're playing three, and you said we're playing like one behind the front two. Is that right?
yeah. So just before I do that, I'm gonna say I was really close to putting Valon Barami in that three,
Oh,
but I just couldn't find a place for him.
what an
I love,
engine! What an
yeah.
engine!
But anyway, you mentioned him before. It's
Yeah,
Dimitri Payet.
yeah.
Obviously he left in not the best circumstances,
No,
but I think once that dust settled, you begin to realise just how incredible he was for us. I mean, sometimes it's almost hard to believe that it actually happened.
yeah, I know
Like,
exactly what you mean. Yeah,
this bloke just turned up from Marseille. Like, don't get me wrong, when he came, I was like, oh, this could be a decent signing, pretty exciting. But in no way did I expect him to
no,
just completely light up the Premier League, become probably one of the best free kick takers in the world, get 2 assists. He didn't play that well in the final game at Upton Park, but he got 2 assists. There's the goal against Man United at Old Trafford, the one against Crystal Palace. Well, 2 against Crystal Palace, the dinked one,
yeah.
and also that free kick
Free kick.
where actually while that free kick was in the air, I actually said, "Oh, well, he's missed that," and then it just dipped down and went in, and I was like, maybe not. But yeah, I mean, just going to watch him every other week was just at Upton Park was just a pure delight. I mean, just a feast for the eyes, wasn't it? Like,
It
you
was.
just
It was.
you turned up to games saying, "Oh, I wonder what Payet's going to do today."
Yeah,
What
yeah.
the whole team played out of their skin all season, but he was the one you going, "I wonder what he's going to come up with." And
That's a good point.
in terms of technical ability, he's got to be one of the best West Ham players for a long time.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, I don't think we're ever going to see a Ballon d'Or nominee in our starting lineup
Yeah.
ever again. Maybe you never know. You never know. Maybe further down the line, but in the not near future, that's for sure. He was just special, wasn't he? He was the
Mm.
player. He was the player that all your mates who were Tottenham and Arsenal fans all wanted in their team.
Mm.
And I can't remember. There's one occasion I can remember, one play I can remember where that was the case, but I won't say it. But I think for me, he's the best player technically I've ever seen at West Ham. I just think he is. He just had so much in his locker. Um, Not the best player for me ever at West Ham, but technically the best player because I think you
Mm.
need that passion. I don't think he had that passion. You know what I mean? He was a fantastically gifted footballer, but he didn't
Mm.
have that sort of like just that connection.
Yeah.
Just that intensity.
I think he had that intensity at the end, but I think that was more
Yeah,
purely out of frustration.
yeah, yeah,
Like, I
was it?
remember there was the goal against, I think, the Middlesbrough one,
Yeah,
and he literally, like, everyone was trying to like high five him because he just scored this amazing goal, and he was basically just pretty much saying, "Get off me and get back."
yeah.
Like, yeah. I mean, even though things were unraveling, like, he was still so good, and
He's
he
still doing
obviously.
it. Yeah,
Yeah, and there was obviously that Euros where I'm obviously not a dad, but I'd imagine seeing him at that Euros is sort of what being a proud dad feels like,
Yeah.
because you just see
I got
this
it with Slav,
guy.
wasn't it? It was Slav when he was jumping on the
Yeah.
table and stuff like that. And again, yeah, something like that. He was. I can't remember a time before where we had like one of the main players in the tournament playing for West Ham. It's all a bit weird. It was all a bit weird, but he was brilliant. And again, very rarely do we get players who just we get at the right time. We always get them when they're
Mm,
either too young or too old. They bookend their career with West Ham, but he was just in that right. I mean, he's still performing well for Marseille now, but that's a sort of 2.5 years, 2 years. He was in his prime, and that again,
mm,
we don't that never happens with us as well. So you're right, and with those mercurial players, you do get that sort of temperamental side. So the way he joined us was the way he left us. He came having went on strike at Marseille, and then so is it a
yeah.
little surprised that he'll just do it again? It works. So it is what it is. We only got I mean, Arnautovic's the same type of player, mercurial, and we only got this other player because this other player, famous player, because he pushed over a referee. And that's it. So it is what it is. What it happens. But anyway, Payet's in. Who's up front? Who's our first striker then?
I'm going for Carlos Tevez. Um, yeah, I mean, obviously he wasn't with us for very long, but that time that he was with us, just
Yeah.
wow, it was just so amazing to watch. I mean, I remember because obviously he took a little while to settle, and we
Mm.
didn't get to see that much of him. And I just remember chanting, "We want Tevez on the pitch." And we just did it every single home game for ages. And then he came on the pitch and he was just outstanding. I mean, obviously scoring the goal that kept us up, but there was that whole run before that. And, a little bit like, what I said with Payet, where you're saying, I wonder what Payet's going to do. He
Yeah.
was like, man, I can't wait to get to Upton Park and watch Carlos Tevez. Like, this guy is
Yeah.
just going to do something amazing. I just know it. And you know, we managed. Obviously, there's everything around the fact that we signed him, but if I'm perfectly honest, I couldn't care less.
No,
I
me
got
neither.
to enjoy watching a supremely talented footballer at Upton Park, even for a short time. So I'll take it.
And that's the thing. I mean, he's one of those. I mean, it's funny. We've interviewed a lot of players who were around during that time,
Mm,
and they all said about Carlos. Yeah, he didn't want to learn any English when Mascherano did, but he really wanted to integrate himself within the team ethic. So I
mm.
think I interviewed Anton, and Anton tells a story where they went to like a London nightclub, and Carlos turns up with his interpreter in the nightclub, and so he's on the dance floor like giving it some, and the interpreter's like next to them communicating, through a third party. And I just think he's just, they said they were all lovely guys. They're both lovely guys, and it was just weird, but it was football, it's football, and
Yeah.
you just expect the unexpected with football. But he was a fantastic, and I remember because also, if I remember before that Tottenham goal and that release of like emotion, he was really unlucky. There was like, if I remember, he'd hit the post or he'd hit the bar or the keeper would
Yeah.
save it. He never quite, and then that first goal went in, and that was it. It was actually
Mm.
carnage from then on, and
You could tell how much it meant to him as well.
yeah, totally. And obviously, there's not many players who come back and get a good reception, like a universal good reception, but he
Yeah.
did. And yeah, he's a great person. And, he still has a club. He said the article the other day, the only club in Europe he'd play for would be West Ham if he came back.
Mm.
36,
Even when he
still
was
got a
at
job.
Man City and Man United, he was still giving it the irons,
He
crossed
brought it back,
arms.
really, didn't he? He brought it
Yeah,
back. I mean, they did it in the 70s and the 80s. I don't remember doing it again until Carlos Tevez came back, and he
yeah.
was playing for Man United at the time. But no, I loved it, love it. Right, okay, Carlos is in. Who's the last place of this team going to then, Danny?
There's a lot of good strikers who have missed out, but I couldn't leave out Paolo Di Canio.
You've got the shirt. That's the thing. The
Yeah,
shirt. I mean, that's the thing. It's like,
I
yeah,
mean, again, it's a bit like Thomas Repka. You know, he was sort of around there at the beginning of my time as a West Ham fan. And I remember one specific game, it was Chelsea away, and me and my dad had gone into the Chelsea end. And it was the season when we went down, and Paolo Di Canio was just out of this world. And I remember inside, I was like, oh my God, this guy is absolutely incredible. And I just wanted to jump around and just be like chanting his name, but I couldn't because I was scared that some like Chelsea hooligan would beat me up or something because I was only little. But, you know, it's memories, like he's given so many West Ham fans so many amazing memories. And, you know, obviously there's that goal against Wimbledon, which is arguably the best ever scored at Upton Park. And, you know, talking about that final game at Upton Park, you know, during the ceremony, you know, it just became clear how special he is to West Ham as a club, because, you know, you think of the people who got their own little video. There was Billy Bonds, Bobby Moore, Sir Trevor Brooking, and Paolo Di Canio. I mean, that's pretty big company to be in.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just says a lot. And, you know, I feel lucky that I was able to become a proper West Ham fan just in time to actually see him play, because I would have been pretty gutted to have missed out on that by so close. So yeah, he's definitely.
And he's the same. You were saying about the Payet. You know, what's Payet going to do? He was the same. Like you go to the game thinking, what is Paolo going to do? Not just from a footballing perspective, but just from an entertainment. He was an entertainer, you know, and he's my best ever player, you know. So I said, you know, because he had the technical ability, obviously not as much as Payet, in my opinion, but he had that passion and that entertainment value. And that's what we want to be at West Ham. We want to be entertained, don't we? We want to not know what's going to happen. And it was part of that crazy era where we had, you know, we had like obviously people like Trevor Sinclair. We had all these youngsters coming through like Rio and Joe. We had these old like Neil Ruddocks and Ian Wrights. We had these sort of crazy foreigners turn up like Paulo Futre. It was part of an incredibly exciting time to be a West Ham fan, and I'm grateful that I was around to watch it, because it was just like a soap opera, and that's why we were entertained. I always talk about about that time, and a classic example being that Bradford City game. I didn't turn up at that Bradford City game thinking that we were going to have this 5-4 barnstorm of a match, where people are ripping the ball out of each other's hands and refusing to go off the pitch and getting sent off and broken legs and stuff like that. But something like that happened at every game. But literally, they all happened at once in this one game. But it was an amazing time, and I was glad that I was around. But no, it's good times, man. Good times.
Yeah.
Paolo, no, that's you can imagine Paolo, Tevez, and Payet. No wonder you need Parker Noble.
But yeah, I mean, even like when another thing, like where you mentioned loyalty earlier, I think another thing is that obviously players give the fans and the club something back by playing for them, but there was this genuine feeling that we'd given him something special as well, because of everything that came before, and the fact that hardly anyone wanted to touch him with a barge pole, yet Harry Redknapp went, nah, let's get him in. And next thing you know, he's a club legend.
It's just one of those ones that came off, didn't it? And he was just but he was just so passionate and just had this sort of and again a bit like Tevez, but obviously a lot more sort of longer period, but they just got each other, the fans and the player, and like Collins and people like that. They just worked, and he still loves the club. I mean, he's got a tattoo at West Ham, and I'm so I hate needles. So anyone who's got a tattoo is always I have high esteem. But someone who's not from around these parts, he's got a West Ham tattoo, loves the club, and I just think he's a lovely guy. And no, just a beauty. He was a beautiful player. Yeah, fantastic player. And no, well, that's it, Danny. That's the 11, man.
Yeah,
that's it. It's been emotional. It's been a roller
Yeah.
coaster. Although I have spoiled most of the selections, so I do apologise as we
It's
go
all right.
through. It is what it is, Danny man. We're going to chat in a minute, but separately. But I just want to say thank you for coming on the channel, and I really really appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Absolute pleasure. And obviously you can follow Danny. Danny's clever enough to put his Twitter handle in his. Why I haven't done this at 180 odd episodes. From now on, I'm going to have my Twitter handle in there. But anyway, and obviously follow the progress of the book as well. No doubt when it's all done and dusted and ready to be published, there'll be loads of stuff everywhere on Twitter and stuff. So make sure
Yeah.
you follow him so he's aware of that. And until next time, from me and Danny, take care, everyone. Stay safe. That's very important at the moment. Stay safe. Come
Yeah.
on, you irons, and we'll see you again very, very soon. Take care, everyone.
See
See you
ya.
later.